And today we are digging up.
How does that work?
The BYU football schedule superlatives. I don't know. It was a reach, Jason. It was a reach.
Spencer out here on the North 40 planting footballs in the growing season.
Indeed. We have to keep these interesting, right? You got to plant the seed on July 3rd so that it sprouts into something beautiful in late fall, Jason.
I know.
The schedule superlatives on the mind today because, well, Big 12 Media Days are right around the corner, and we've been thinking a lot about what BYU is going to face in year 3 of Big 12 play. So let's look at the 2025 schedule and ask the following, beginning with this question, Jason. What is the game you have circled on BYU's schedule second, of course, after the rivalry game against Utah?
Yeah, we're assuming that everybody's going to circle that one first because of the rivalry game. I actually went with Utah's real rival, Colorado. So I went with the Buffaloes for a couple of different reasons.
Okay.
Number one, it's the conference opener, and that's going to be something that we all look forward to, especially depending on how the non-conference season goes, and we anticipate it going well. Regardless of how the quarterback situation plays out. I think it sets up nicely for BYU to begin Big 12 play, playing good football. So that's the one I've got circled. Plus, you also have the rematch of the bowl game from last year. Now, certainly a very, very different team for Colorado, specifically on the offensive side, than what BYU faced last time. But that's the one that I've got circled. What about you?
Hard not to be excited about the Big 12 opener that you bring up. For me, it comes after a bye and into November against a team that spent a lot of money and a lot of time and NIL interest to make their football team and athletic department better, and that is Texas Tech. Jason, I think the Red Raiders could be a very, very good football team and kind of expect them to be somewhere in the top 3 or 4 teams of the 16-team Big 12 conference. BYU's got to go on the road to Lubbock. But again, it's after a bye.
Right.
What can BYU do with an extra week of preparation to handle Lubbock, which I hear is a fantastic college game day experience? So I'm excited about that as well. But I think the challenge is going to be significant for what might be a top 25 foe that BYU faces. And what are the Cougars in November? Because remember, BYU ran into some trouble late in the season. They ran out of gas. They survived Utah and then ended up losing to Kansas and Arizona State. This is a huge game in early November, a statement opportunity for BYU. So I've got that game circled as a massive challenge for BYU.
I like that one. All right, our next superlative. BYU's toughest game on the schedule is what?
I believe we have a consensus here.
Yes, we do. This one was, to us, this one was pretty easy.
At Iowa State, late October, you look at where the game falls in the schedule as well. So BYU will have just hosted Utah. You have to turn around after that emotional entourage or whatever, emotional explosion of feelings and the rivalry, and then you have to go to Ames and play in front of 59,000 screaming Cyclone fans. This is a team that BYU didn't play last year. I wish they would have had an opportunity to play Iowa State. Didn't. Finally get it, but it's on the road in what I believe is, next to LaVell Edwards Stadium, probably the most raucous crowd in the entire Big 12 conference.
Yeah, it's a situation there. I think the environment plays such a massive role into the argument as it being the toughest game. And I understand that from an offensive standpoint, Iowa State, their top couple of receivers drafted in the NFL this year, but you still have Rocco Becht. I believe in what they have done, and I believe in what they did last year and carrying over. And the fact that it is a road game later in the year and you have to go to Ames in that environment that you spoke of.
They just have so much continuity, and their head coach, Matt Campbell, is fantastic.
Yeah, they've got so much going for them, especially when they're at home. And on top of it, they're going to be a good football team this year. To me, that's the toughest one.
I can already hear some Big 12 schools saying Iowa State has the best home environment. Texas Tech is angry about that. Kansas State's angry about that. Not saying that those aren't great environments, but Iowa State consistently, Jason, really loud and very difficult to win in that stadium. Okay, next superlative. The most winnable conference for BYU in the Big 12.
This also was a consensus for you and I, and we both went with the final game of the regular season, a home game in November when the boys from Orlando come across the country to the altitude and in all likelihood very cold temperatures and possibly snow. It's UCF.
Just like I felt about Houston having to do the same thing last year against BYU in the final regular season game. You got to leave South Texas where it's warm and comfortable, and you got to play at 4,500 feet and it's 36 degrees and just uncomfortable. Yeah, what is UCF too? I think it's awesome that they have Scott Frost back at the helm because he led them to one of their greatest seasons and moments in UCF football history, but it's going to take a while for him to build back up. Late season in Provo, yeah. If I'm playing in Orlando most of the time and I got to go to Provo on November, whatever it is, 30th, ugh.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
I want no part of that. So I think that's the most winnable Big 12 game. Again, this does not include non-conference. This is, as far as superlatives go, the most winnable Big 12 game. You and I agree, UCF.
All right, in honor of Admiral Akbar, the biggest trap game, who you got?
It's a trap.
That's not bad.
I love it. This one I struggled with a little bit because I think there are a few real solid options on this, which is not great. I don't like thinking like, oh, that could be a trap game. That could be a trap. Ooh, that could be a trap game too. But I centered on BYU in Tucson at Arizona. And here's why. Because I feel like BYU is going to be a clear favorite. And in the Kalani Sitake era, BYU has had their way with Arizona. Hasn't mattered where the game is played, whether it's in Provo, in Tucson, or in Las Vegas at a neutral site. Kalani and BYU have just figured out Arizona. But because you start to maybe think that way a little bit, like, yeah, I'm not worried about it. Well, it's Arizona supposed to be one of the worst teams in the conference. It's kind of a weird place to play at times. What if Brett Brennan can manage to build some confidence in that program? Let's say that they win a game or two that they weren't supposed to win early in the season. Now they're playing with some confidence. You get BYU at home. That game scares me a little bit. I hope that the dominance from Sitake and BYU continues. But that, to me, is the biggest trap game.
Yeah, for me, the answer, this will be the first game outside of a Big 12 game that I'm going to go with. For the trap game, I've got at East Carolina.
Okay.
And for a couple of different reasons. Number one, it is your final non-conference game. You do have that game to begin conference play at Colorado. But I believe, and it's something that we've talked about on this show, when you look at the way the non-conference schedule begins, you've got Portland State at home, you've got Stanford at home. BYU should win both of those, and I think BYU not only should win both of those, but I think you come out of those feeling pretty good about the way things have gone. But then you got to go on the road all the way out to East Carolina as your final non-conference game.
I know BYU fans have some PTSD from what happened in 2017.
Yes, and I know that those games don't mean anything now, but from a fan base, we have a long memory of all these games previously, and East Carolina has knocked BYU off a couple of times in the last decade plus. And so I think, for me, that's the one that I look at as a trap game before you start conference play.
Beware Greenville, North Carolina. Here's why I didn't pick that game. BYU has a bye before it.
Right.
And in the coaching staff, specifically Jay Hill and his defense, I trust with an extra week of preparation. That was the only thing, because I initially went there with you, like, oh, man, East Carolina just feels super weird. But they have a bye week, so that's why I opted for Arizona. Okay, let's keep it rolling. Best road trip available for BYU fans this season.
This one was a tough one, but I ultimately landed on Texas Tech.
Lubbock.
But it's less about Lubbock and it's more about the venue.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with Texas Tech's campus when I was there with women's basketball this past year. The campus is beautiful. It is unbelievable. And because you have the environment that we expect to see at Texas Tech with them being good, and we know how that translates in terms of the fan base and how they'll react, but then you also have the tortillas and all of the stuff that goes along with it.
I was hoping you'd bring that up.
You got the carbo loading, the carb loading. So I ultimately went with the game at Texas Tech.
Okay. I like that. I'm just super excited that there's a nonstop flight on Southwest from Lubbock to Salt Lake City the day after the game. Okay, mark that, BYU.
Yeah, because if you go Delta, you got to go to DFW and then over to Lubbock.
Delta doesn't even fly into Lubbock.
I did it.
Oh, you did it?
I did it.
How did you do that?
Well, maybe it was Southwest.
Yeah, I don't think it was Delta.
All I know is I had to go through DFW to get there.
Jason apparently has a different luxury
now I'm
of
second
travel.
guessing if it was actually Delta.
My best road trip. And I know some of you are going to go, huh? Just hear me out. At Colorado. And if you have not watched a game on that campus with that facade and the unique setup of the stadium, which, by the way, has been recently renovated. It's beautiful. It's late September. There's a huge contingent of BYU fans and alumni in the Denver Metroplex. Didn't you feel it during the NCAA Men's Basketball Championship? Yeah. BYU fans will find a way into this stadium. It's going to be an awesome road trip experience. Love the facade, the campus, the buildings, and there's going to be a revenge factor for Colorado after what BYU did to the Buffaloes in the Alamo Bowl. I think that is a fascinating road trip. It should be gorgeous weather, too. 75 degrees. It's a late kick. A lot of eyeballs on the game. Coach Prime in there. Yeah, I like BYU's Big 12 opener at Colorado for a lot of excitement.
As crazy as it sounds, for as close as we live to that area, and as many times as I've been to Denver, countless times, including last weekend I was in Denver, I've never been to Boulder. So I'm excited to check out Boulder. Check it out.
I watched your boy Chase Daniel, former Chiefs quarterback, destroy Colorado when he was at Missouri.
That's right.
In that stadium.
That's right.